Forgiveness is something our society's been telling us is necessary for mental well being, and without it, you are a spiteful, grudge holding, and overall just weaker person. However, I believe it is just quite the opposite. Personally, I have never really believed in forgiveness, and I find it quite overrated, and it is because of this that I do not actively practice it in my life. While doing my research, I wanted to first learn about the science and origins of forgiveness. In an article from Patrick Madigan titled Before Forgiveness: The Origins of a Moral Idea, he explained that forgiveness wasn't found until the major religions started to expand. In fact, forgiveness was found as a luxury in ancient Greece and Rome. The Greek and Romans found the concept of forgiveness quite unneeded in their society because they viewed a wrongdoing as something that cannot be simply forgiven, but they also knew how to move on without it. Even when forgiveness did emerge in religious scriptures, it was never applied to other people. Madigan went on to explain later in his article, saying that forgiveness was directly linked to God in divine forgiveness, and forgiving others didn't come until the Enlightenment. In a study titled The Reflections on Forgiveness Framework, a framework to understand older adults' forgiveness development over the life course, researchers found that most people's views on forgiveness comes from either past life experiences or from their religion. They also said that most forms of forgiveness come from social pressure or revenge. Another article titled Human Health and Christianity in the Context of the Dilemma of Forgiveness agreed and also added that while Christianity strongly pushes the idea of forgiveness, it is often pushed too forcefully. I've always felt that by forgiving someone, you are throwing away what they did instead of addressing it fully and showing you will not accept that sort of wrongdoing again. Many sources I found agreed with this. The article I mentioned earlier, Human Health and Christianity, said forgiveness may send a message to the perpetrator that the form of mistreatment has been accepted by the victim. In the article, The Reflections on Forgiveness, one participant of their study stated, I think it made a huge impression on me, and that, I guess I'm saying, not to forgive. That you stand up for what you think is right, and you don't forgive, and you won't give in. This brings me to explain exactly why I do not personally believe in forgiveness. So, as my past articles have also mentioned and explained, oftentimes forgiveness is forced onto people who are just not mentally ready to forgive yet, and therefore oftentimes becomes very toxic. Um, I also just think there are some times and some situations where forgiveness is just completely unacceptable. For example, when mothers forgive the people who killed their child, a sentiment I have never understood and probably will never understand. I'm sure we've all heard similar stories, and next is even a video of a mother, Javika Hawkins, forgiving the man who killed her son.
But before he was taken away, he had to hear the heartbreaking statement of the mother of the teen that he killed. 24-hour News 8's Barton Dieters was in court. He has this story tonight. Barton.
Well, Brian, today Vicente Rodriguez Ortiz remained apparently unmoved by the statements of the family of the woman for whose homicide he entered a plea. But that all changed when he faced the mother of the teen he was convicted of killing. Rodriguez Ortiz was already charged with domestic violence against 50-year-old Lori Lundeberg in March of 2017 before he shot her in the head, according to police. But he would not be arrested for that crime until January 2018, when he was arrested for the shooting death of 17-year-old Andre Hawkins. Police said he made statements while questioned about the Hawkins slaying that provided evidence in the murder of Lundeberg. Today, before the judge handed down the life sentence, he had to hear from the mother of the teen he allegedly killed in a jealous rage. The grace displayed in her words stunned those gathered in the Kent County Circuit Courtroom.
In order to get through this process, I had to forgive you, and I forgive you from the bottom of my heart. I pray for you because as a mother, you're a child to me, and in my heart, I have no anger or bitterness towards you. As a mom, I just want to hug you because I know that there's something that's not connected that made you feel so angry.
I just want to say I'm sorry, Miss Hawkins.
Rodriguez Ortiz did not apologize to the Lundeberg family.
Personally, I do not think this is something that we should be praising and something we should see as a strength. If anything, I find it as a sign of weakness. For a mother to forgive the person who killed her own child is really a level of stupidity I will never be able to comprehend. While doing my research, I came across a lot of stories I found ridiculous. However, one story truly blew them all out of the water. I came across the story of Chris Carrier. When Chris Carrier was just 10 years old, he was abducted from his home in Florida, stabbed in the chest and the head with an ice pick, and shot in the back of the head. He then suffered from multiple cigarettes being put out on his skin as a test to see if he was really dead or not. Miraculously, he survived but was unconscious for 6 days before being found. When he was shot, the bullet went in his left temple and came out his right, damaging his optic nerve and leaving him permanently blind in his left eye. Chris Carrier refused to work with investigators and told them he remembered nothing about his abductor. Even when he knew who did the crime, he never came forward. His own father even told him not to tell investigators when he knew who it was. 22 years later, a man finally admitted to the crime. David McAllister confessed that he was the one who abducted, stabbed, and shot 10-year-old Chris Carrier as revenge for getting fired from his uncle 5 months prior. McAllister was now 77 years old, blind, lonely, and on his deathbed. He never admitted he was sorry for what he did, but Chris Carrier forgave him nonetheless. In fact, he went as far to bring him food, gifts, prayed with him, and kept him company in the 3 weeks it took for him to pass away. Chris Carrier admitted that he never had any ill will towards the man and forgave him from the moment he knew who did it. Now this was just truly beyond me. I do not find this at all endearing or strong. This was an act of true selfishness and childishness. In an interview, the investigators that were on the case admitted that it was one of the most frustrating cases they had ever had to work on. These investigators had to work during Christmas to find Chris Carrier while he was still unconscious. They tried again and again to bring justice to such a horrible crime, and Chris Carrier refused to admit anything because he chose to simply forgive David McAllister. Since Chris Carrier decided to never say anything to investigators, David McAllister never got arrested for that specific crime. However, he was arrested years later on multiple charges of assault. If Chris Carrier would have just said something, these future crimes could have been prevented. His actions were both foolish and ignorant. Now, some may say that this is still just not enough evidence. They may say that there are just too many influential people backing forgiveness for it to be such a big issue as I'm making it seem. However, it's not just me and random others saying this. There are also psychiatrists that are backing my claims. Licensed psychiatrist Sandy Katz explained, "My lack of forgiveness has not impeded my development or my relationships at all. In fact, it's cured me. Before I took a stand, I was always depressed and acceding to others' needs, always confused about my rights and about what was real." I think Safira Sarju said it best in her article, saying, "Not being able to forgive doesn't mean you walk around day in and day out with a chip on your shoulder or a clouded mindset, hell-bent on seeking revenge. It means taking a stand against the kind of behavior and actions you won't tolerate, and boldly saying it is not okay to be treated this way. Having the courage to be dishonest doesn't just bring about peace. For me, it's like I've been given a new lease of life." I hope after this you are now able to question whether or not forgiveness is something you really need in your life, because it has never been necessary in mine. Thank you.